And we are back for a semi-final match in the first ever versus 2PCG Invitational tournament in the multiverse format. Right now, our players are rolling to see who had initiative. I think that was 3 dice rolls in a row where they tied, which is kind of funny. Today's match is Burt Richardson playing Invisible Woman versus Robert Smallwood on Outriders. Outriders would appear to have a bit of an advantage in this match, I'm afraid. With starting, well, in every match where Outriders show up, I'm both afraid and they appear to have an advantage. These are 3-1 MCs that each have 3 health and ferocious. You start with 6 of them in play, so you've got 18 attack that you can put onto the board before the other player even draws a card. Invisible Woman, by contrast, is a 0-6 with 5 health. She could pay yellow to make characters in a row and to give them invisibility for a turn, and that will allow her to get some XP. Her level up gets her to a 410. She retains her yellow power, and we'll talk about her other power once we get there. Alright, our players are shuffled up and they're getting ready to go here. I am going to try to do a better job of describing all of the cards and card effects for people who don't have all the cards memorized, because I did not do enough of that in the opening round. Thanks again to our players for taking time out of deck building, family time, whatever else they could have potentially had going on to play in this event. Alright, so Smallwood opens with a red location and then plays Frohickey and powers up twice with Gunman. So Frohickey is going to trigger 2 times, which means Smallwood's going to draw 2 cards off that trigger. He's going to put 1/1 counter from the buyers onto Invisible Woman, and he's going to force Burt to discard a random card, which it looked like it was a Wyatt Wingfoot there. At the same time, Frohickey is getting 2+1 counters, and we have our first wound on Invisible Woman already as the Outriders swing in after that powerful Gunman opener, which is kind of what you're afraid of. I think a lot of this is going to hinge on whether or not these gunmen can just destroy Burt's options. Oh man, and the infiltrate. So, Burt's hand, wow, that is so clogged with top end. But because it's all characters, Black Widow can't force Burt to discard anything because her power only lets you discard a non-character card. Burt rose a face-down resource, which tells us that he did not top deck a location there, and he passes it again. So this is a couple of highly inactive turns for Burt with no experience gain. And now with Mordo coming down on the board and turning off all superpowers on Burt's side, his avenue for how he gets his experience has been closed as well. I think there was another power-up on Frohickey there, although I missed... Oh, must have been a Langley, because I see they're starting to do another random discard. So Robert has... So I think there were 2 Jungle Hunters in Burt's hand before, now he's down to 1. Robert has drawn 3 additional cards, as well as Frohickey now being a 4/6. It's ridiculous. Was that another Langley? Alright, Outriders put another wound on a Burt. Which brings us to 3 wounds that fast. That's incredible. So, Burt's had to discard, I think, 4 cards at this point. He wasn't drawing locations, so his draw wasn't particularly strong to begin with, and it's been chipped apart by Langley's. Mordo, even if Burt has a good recruit here, Mordo has all superpowers turned off. What could he play? I mean, presumably something with some range could start putting some wounds on these Outriders, but that's too slow. Like, 1 ranged attack to put 1 wound on an Outrider is not going to bail him out here. Alright, so he finally top decks a yellow. Wow. So 3 turns in a row with no recruit from Burt. And a Killmonger strips Invisible Woman. So superpowers get turned off, and then Killmonger strips Invisible Woman of her text. Wow, look at that hand. And thus concludes Game 1 of this semifinal matchup between Outriders and Invisible Woman. What a bloodbath. Okay, so what could go better for Burt in Game 2? He could draw some lower drop characters to recruit. Those lower drop characters are, after all, the way he is able to level up. He gets experience by having hidden characters. I'm going to make her bigger for a second so I can... Oops. There we go. So it's whenever a character, any number of characters on your side hide, she gains that much experience. So the more supporting characters Burt gets, the better Invisible Woman is going to be at gaining experience. So maybe he can get some low drop characters out there to fuel that. Maybe he can get some locations. I mean, he did see one yellow, but at the time it showed up, it was too little too late. I think this match actually hinges on, does Smallwood get the early gunman? If he gets a Frohickey on 1 or a Langley on 2, either way, if he is able to get Langley activations off of it, really at any point in this game, a handful of Langley activations is probably going to slam the door shut on Burt. So now playing on the back foot, we've got the Black Hurricane versus the Goat. Let's see who comes out on the top Game 2. So far, I think all of our series have been sweeps. So Smallwood opening with a blue here. Uh-oh, no recruits. Okay, so that is a much slower start, although he still has 18 attack into a character with 6 defense, and Burt takes his first wound. Okay, so Burt Rosie Yellow. This is a much better start. No characters to recruit. Potentially, if he doesn't have that many yellows, he wants to wait until a turn where he can recruit multiple characters, hide them all, and maybe do that 2 turns in a row and get all of his experience chained just out of the way in back-to-back turns. Trying to hide 1 or 2 characters on turn 1, maybe 1 or 2 characters on turn 2, that requires a lot more yellows, although it is a faster, kind of more impressive looking start. Alright, Smallwood ends up using the blue to seek out a Frohickey and putting him into play. He's not shuffling after that search because he immediately plays I Need Your Help from hand and is going to put a card of his choice on top of his deck because of that plot twist, and then almost certainly this is telegraphing either Byers or Langley in hand. I mean, maybe not. That could be the right play even if you don't have the Byers or Langley, but given... Yeah, there's Langley. So there's 2 Langleys. That makes Frohickey 3-5. Burt's going to go down 2 cards at random. Alright, so card number 7 is going to get thrown out. Not that the number 7 has any significance. This is just a way of making sure that it's random, giving each card a number, and then having the other player roll it. That way there's no bias at work. So that was a number of gunmen that isn't great, but it was not a devastating number of gunmen. Okay. Now, I think Burt is indicating that there's just yellows. Kind of the way he was throwing the cards off the top of the deck. It didn't seem like there was a high likelihood of it getting anything other than a basic yellow. So this is a much better start for Burt. Yeah, he's eating some of these early wounds down low, but that's okay. That's what Invisible Woman does. This kind of start where, okay, now he's going to get to spend one of these yellows, collect a couple experience points, not have to eat a wound next turn. It doesn't take a whole lot. Well, okay, that's not true. It does take kind of a lot for Invisible Woman. Yeah, okay, so he's paying the effect to Invisible Woman, hiding both Kane and Sue, and gaining 2 XP. Since that's an end of turn trigger and characters with invisibility have to be ready in order to get used, Burt can't do really anything with his turn. I mean, he didn't have many options anyway. Mordo coming down is just bad news for Burt all over again. This Mordo turning off superpowers and making it so that Sue is going to be unable to hide again next turn. I'm not sure what Burt has in his deck that would act as clear to get Mordo out of the way and let her spend that yellow. I mean, Sue herself, the Invisible Woman can fly, but her attack is not big enough because 0 is smaller than, I think Mordo is a 5/4. So there's no attacks here. That's not exactly surprising. There's nobody for Smallwood to attack. So what does Burt want to see here? Another yellow. Man, this is a great draw. These are the cards that Burt wants to have access to. But with Mordo in play, he unfortunately doesn't. Ooh, Ganymede has flight, doesn't she? Ooh! So now I wonder what the thinking is there. So there's a Baxter building up. Smallwood's back row threats don't seem likely to be able to hit Ganymede. So rather than try to... Oh, yeah, another Langley power up. That's brutal. So Ganymede's text is relevant here in that if Smallwood tries to attack in with any collection of Outriders, Burt has the location to flip for the red for Ganymede, and then Ganymede strikes faster than Ferocious strikes come. So Rob would have to accept a wound on one Outrider and commit at least what he needs to get a wound on Ganymede +1. Okay, is he sending them all? Looks like he's sending them all. And Burt is not spending the red. He's just taking the wound. That's probably better. I mean, his win condition has to be leveling Invisible Woman, but being able to kind of threaten that, it's probably not enough of a threat that it would yeah, now they're all going to all be in the same row. It's probably not enough of a threat that a seasoned player like Smallwood would be pushed off of doing what he needs to do. Ooh, this is a really good combo. Okay, so for people who aren't familiar, Singularity allows you to pay a blue and then remove any number of cards, any number of characters from the game with the condition they come back at the start of your next turn or when Singularity gets stunned. What's going to happen here is Invisible Woman's going to pay a yellow to give everybody invisibility. He's going to scoop up all of that experience, and then everybody goes into the pocket. Except, now, technically Singularity is still in play, but she's hidden. So there's a loop here, because the other character that Burt recruited there was Captain Swain, which is a character whose power, when they come into play, they get to choose another supporting character, and that character pays 1 less for superpowers that turn. So Singularity plus Swain essentially creates the infinite loop that the old pre-ban and replace Singularity allowed. Yet another discard from Vulture coming down. Just to be clear, when the players are playing over Skype, they have a wider angle. So even though it looks like Burt is setting his cards out of the field of view when doing these layouts for the random discards, Smallwood is still able to see them, just so we're clear. So there's a lot of effects happening here when Singularity flips face up and the pocket dimension ends. Kane is coming out, which is going to allow Explorer to trigger, and Burt is revealing cards from the top of his deck until he hits a yellow. Given his both times he's triggered Kane, he said, okay, I'm going to go get a yellow. I think we can surmise that he only has yellows in this deck. The other thing is that Swain will trigger. Now, likely the Terrigenesis on Swain doesn't matter, so I don't suspect Burt is actually going to use that. Although maybe there's some thinking, some kind of weird combat plot twist. Yeah, I don't think it matters one way or the other with the Terrigenesis. And I suspect Swain is going to target Singularity with her make a superpower free this turn effect and keep this loop going, because this loop could potentially lock the Outriders out of the game. I mean, if Burt plays a Iron Man, the 6-cost Avengers Iron Man, and is able to start flipping locations face up in his resource row, this can't be stopped. And he can slowly, one at a time, use Ganymede to spend 3 turns to pick off an Outrider, then pick off the next one, and this could go on quite a long time. White Wingfoot is coming down for Burt. I realize he's just a little bit out of frame there, but that is a White Wingfoot. So everybody in the front row has invisibility. Now it's important that Wyatt doesn't go into the pocket, because if he gets pocketed, he doesn't get to draw his cards, and he doesn't get to... any cards that are in Wyatt's hand would be removed from game when he gets pocketed. So the balancing of who goes in the pocket and who doesn't go in the pocket here, this is a more complex line. Wow, there's a lot of layers to this. So Hela comes down on Smallwood's side. This is going to reduce the health of all characters on Burt's side to 1, which is going to have the net effect of killing Ganymede as soon as she enters play, because Ganymede's holding a wound. Normally when characters are removed from game, they lose all counters, but the way Singularity is worded, characters keep wounds when they go into the pocket. Man, that really shows off how strong Ganymede is, because that one character, so that's, I believe, the last yellow in Burt's deck there, that one character with this loop has the potential to just kill dogs all day. Kill all kinds of things all day. Oh, I'm messing up here. We gotta get level 2 Invisible Woman up, and I'm gonna make her bigger for just a second here. So we can see any combat, you can pay a blue or green, and characters in the combat can't strike. So this power also severely hobbles Smallwood's ability to do what his deck wants to do. Now, there aren't that many locations in the deck total. It looks like we've got the 4 Baxters and 4 yellows, and no basic blues or greens. So I don't know how many times Burt has to activate that power, but there's the Iron Man. Now it doesn't matter. All he needs is 1. This is basically an infinite lockout loop. What Smallwood needs to get through this is some way to hit a face down character or KO a character to get Singularity off the board during his turn, and then cause all those characters to vomit back out on the board where he can start picking them off with Outriders. And this is a situation where Langley can't help him anymore. If Burt didn't draw another card for the rest of the game, he's still in a really strong spot here. Okay, no attacks, just passing. So what's happening here is Kane is activating, but Burt has already revealed his whole deck, and there's nothing else to find, so there's no reason to actually flip the cards other than wasting time. So Burt just cut the deck to represent the shuffle that Kane requires, because it is a mandatory effect and it's moving on with his turn. So Boomerang's coming down out of Invisible Woman's hand. I don't think we're going to see anything too impactful from Wyatt yet, because he's only got the 2 resources. Wow, look at that board. So what kind of pieces could really help here? Like, if Iron Man comes over to hit something on Smallwood's side, is there some kind of a attack pump? Really, one of these attacks on Burt's side has to go wrong, because at this point, he's not giving Smallwood anything to hit on the off turns. And I just don't know that this Outrider deck has that counterpunch. It's designed to be first, to be the deck that punches, and when there's nothing to punch, getting those attacks on the crackback, Burt is now set up to the point where his characters are large enough that 3 attack on the crackback is not terribly threatening. Oh, so Burt is leaving Kane out to give Smallwood something to hit because he doesn't want to deal with shuffling his deck every turn. Concession! Wow! So this is the first time in the event, well, the first game I've watched, I haven't watched the other half of the bracket yet, where Outriders has dropped a game. That's pretty big. That Ganymede really bailed Burt out of a bad situation. So here we are looking at Game 3. This is the first Game 3 of the Invitational, and this is the first loss that Outriders has taken. And what do we want to see? I mean, obviously Burt needs roughly the same start as Game 2, and Smallwood needs roughly the same start as Game 1. If hitting all of those cards out of hand with Langley early is kind of the key to victory, because having that lock set up really puts Smallwood in a place where his tremendous power is no longer super relevant. So something like Goose from Smallwood's side, which is a card we haven't seen come out of him yet, but I think we saw in opening round. That would be Bifrost potentially. These would be ways that Smallwood can maybe get that singularity out of the way and then have a whole bunch of vulnerable characters to like rip apart with his army of dogs to prevent that lock from holding. But once it's in place, I mean, this is the drawback of Photographic Universe. These cards are annoyingly overpowered, but the card pool is pretty limited. Got a mulligan on Burt's side there. So, I predicted, before I sat down to record these games, that we were going to have an Outrider finals. And now it looks like we may actually be in the place where that isn't going to happen. But really, it less hinges on the back of what the Outriders themselves are doing. And in this case, while they themselves are the brokenest thing in terms of combat actions, Langley and the Gunman package are the brokenest thing in terms of disruption. And while the combat interaction is maybe not the biggest long-term threat to Burt, I mean, yes, it is the way he will go out of the game. The way he will lose the game is not through some kind of alt-win condition, but through wounds. That's not really what he's afraid of. He can afford to take a few wounds. He can afford to take 4 wounds. As long as the lock gets set up, once it's in place, he's invulnerable. He's absolutely impenetrable. So we have an Avengers Tower, I think that card's called. The Hero Wild on photo side from Smallwood, and then 1 wound heading into Burt. A yellow on turn 1 is a pretty good start. I think that's where Burt wants to be. That looks like a Bifrost over there from Smallwood, which is not a card that I think We have to assume Langley is coming out here. With the Avengers Tower flipping and one recruit point left over, I doubt there's any other 1-drops in that deck other than the Langleys. Or Frohickeys. Langley's the 2-drop. So, do we see an I Need Your Help draw? Yep. Alright, so he's going to go search something out. I suspect if he has at least one power-up in hand, that we're going to see another Langley put to the top of the deck, so he can Byers Langley or Langley Langley. Power-up with Byers. Draw the card. I bet that's a Langley. I think that was Byers, Langley, Langley. I think is the order there. Yeah, it looks like 2 -1s on Invisible Woman, bringing her down to a 4 defense, and Burt's losing 2 cards from hand. He has 8 total. Well, he'll have 6 after this effect resolves, and Frohickey is going to turn into a 3-5, I think. He's going to get 2+1 counters. I'm actually not totally sure from memory if Frohickey's a 1-3. Oh, it was 4 power-ups. Oh, yeah. So he's actually a 5... Oh my goodness, a 5-7? Is that right? It's a 1-drop on turn 2. Alright, so Burt plays a Baxter building. Kane, he's going to hide everybody. He is going to grab his yellow. He's just getting his turn set up so Smallwood can go ahead and go while he's going through his deck. See, this is one of those things with the more experienced players. You can kind of merge turns in a way, and some of these lengthier effects you can resolve while the other person's drawing up and such. Interesting. So I think the Langley play coming from hand would indicate to me that Rob is holding some Frohickeys in hand. Because discarding Frohickey to power up Frohickey... Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You can't get the gunman benefit if you're powering up Frohickey with Frohickey. So he had to play the Langley in order to draw 2 extra cards, force Burt to discard 2 more cards, and now he's got a Langley and a Frohickey in play. And while maybe there was an argument for holding off on the gunmen entirely and just playing the bigger ones, I think being really, really aggressive with them is the right line of play here, because ultimately what Smallwood needs to do is deny Burt resources. The longer this goes on with Burt drawing cards and not taking wounds, okay, so we got 90. Interesting sequencing there. So that I Need Your Help must have been drawn off of presumably the final power-up. If he drew that card off the first Frohickey power-up, I can't imagine he wouldn't have played it at that time immediately to draw whatever the card is that he's searching for. Nothing to do. Nothing to do with all that strength. Draw 2. I think Burt might be at 6 cards in hand right now. 5. He's going to hide all 3. Gain more experience. I think she needs 6 to level up. Oops. Make her big so I can see her again here. Yeah, she needs 6 to level up. So he needs 1 more after this. Vulture coming down for Smallwood. Is there going to be a turn? It's like, if I can't wound your character, Smallwood's like, I will wound your hand. All the wounds I can't put on your MC, I'm going to put on your options. Which is really extremely good tactics. It's part of the reason Photographic Universe is so degenerate. So that must have been another Frohickey. So I think that was all 4 Frohickeys. Because the turn he recruited Langley, he powered up with Frohickey twice, and he just did it with a 3rd one, and of course the 4th was already in play. I think that might be all the Langleys, too. 2, 3, There might be one more Langley. I mean, when you play search cards, you get to have really consistent decks, really consistent draws. That's what I Need Your Help does. That's a huge part of the power of Gunman. So Wyatt draws up 2 cards and plays a resource, no recruit, and the whole team being hidden. So this will cause Invisible Woman to level up. Interesting. So they're only doing the discard effect targeting Burt's hand. So Black Widow comes down. Which, I mean, I guess is a decent card here. But the kinds of things that I think Smallwood really wants to be discarding: Swain, Singularity, Iron Man, potentially Ganymede, although I don't think you're as afraid of Ganymede as you are afraid of the support characters. None of those can be discarded. Oh man, that boomerang in Wyatt's hand is not coming down anytime soon, but that's got to feel like a ticking time bomb on Smallwood. Boomerang looping with Singularity. Now what's good here is you see no Singularity in Burt's hands. And potentially, with Wyatt drawing those 2 extra cards, one of those maybe was a Singularity, and now it's trapped over there and can't be recruited. So the whole team's going to hide again, which is, I think, 2 yellows and 2 Baxter buildings at this point. So Burt is going to be running on fumes if he cannot hit an Iron Man or Swain or some kind of looping effect to start helping protect his team here outside of just putting his foot on the yellow pedal with Invisible Woman. Mordo would feel really good here if you're Smallwood. Killmonger would feel good. I mean, there's no attacks to make, so I'm not sure what he's considering. There's probably got to be some kind of... maybe that Bifrost play? I'm not sure. Bifrost can target face down bodies, I'm pretty sure. I'd have to look that up. But I believe it just lets you target a character and remove it from play for the turn. I mean, it's weird that the most impactful play would be 3 drops and 4 drops. He's on turn 6. But I'm not sitting here going, oh, well, Red Skull could maybe do something, kind of. But not really. It's not going to protect from the lock, because Iron Man can flip a basic yellow over, Swain can cover Singularity's requirement. And that essentially is all the pieces of the lock. We know Burt is holding the Swain. The question is he going to have time to get down the Singularity and the Iron Man before he starts eating wounds and getting chipped up? Because at this point, from what we're seeing, he's out of resources. He's not going to be able to hide this turn. Now, this turn, Wyatt will have the 3, and Wyatt could recruit the Singularity, Burt could recruit the Iron Man, and he could have essentially a 9 resource point turn here, and have the whole lock set up. Oh, but that doesn't get Swain down. So flip a basic over, or maybe a Baxter building. Probably a basic though. No, Baxter building. Okay. I don't think it matters, because I think the move here is going to be spend the yellow and hide everybody. So it's kind of irrelevant which one you flip over. I'm so curious what cards Wyatt is having to put face down in his row. Oh. So the Iron Man gives him one more turn of hiding before Burt has to start to really face down this. Holy cow, what a devastating setup. So Burt just discarded a Swain. I'm not sure what the effect was that caused that. Man, what a tense and frustrating situation to be in. You've got this excellent draw, this excellent board state. You've been ripping your opponent's hand apart. You clearly have them dead on board, and you just can't hit them because you can't see them. This is so. One of the things that Versus does better than any other game is give you the flavor. Ooh, a gen recruit from Smallwood here. That is super impactful. So he's going to be able to spend a blue, go into his wish pile, and choose a card. Now, he has to give a copy of that card to Burt to play with as well. And what he got was Not Finished Yet, which is the Underworld, I think, affiliated loyalty plot twist that lets you flip a character face up after they were face down for the turn. He flipped up Iron Man and smashed everybody with Outriders. So Smallwood activated Infiltrate with Black Widow. He was able to look at all the cards in all the hands, in both hands rather, and there was no targets. This is really going to be a problem. All these extra cards that Burt is seeing, it's the statistical chance that he has not pulled his pretty robust demands for his combo. He needs a lot of cards to get it going, but he's seen a lot of cards at this point. So is he going to have an Iron Man here to buy one more turn? I'm not sure that the Not Finished Yet is going to help Burt in any kind of way. He does also have access to the card that Smallwood wished for, but in true Smallwood style, it is a card that benefits him greatly and benefits his opponent almost not at all. So there aren't a lot of wounds on Sue. At this point, I think there's only 2. And he's just hid every turn of the game since then. So we know Burt didn't have Iron Man in his hand because of the Infiltrate last turn. If he top decked an Iron Man right there, that would be huge. I think if he did, he would have played it already, though. Man, what do you even do? I suppose you could play that Boomerang, daze all the counters off of Frohickey, and I mean, it doesn't matter what you daze in the front row. That could come down out of Wyatt's grip. Unfortunately, really great turn 7 plays like Jungle Hunter are trapped on Wyatt's half of the hand, and Wyatt is only at 4 recruit points this turn. This is one of the frustrating things that can happen with this card, is you see the cards you want, but Wyatt can't come down until so late in the game that those cards that you want to play on turn 6 or 7 are trapped behind 3 or 4 recruit points. So Singularity and Ganymede coming down is pretty good here because the two face-up locations Burt still has are Arcadias, which are going to allow Singularity to trigger. Ganymede's going to be able to essentially get a free wound on an Outrider, pick off probably that Black Widow, or Heimdall would be more impactful uses of Ganymede. Almost certainly you want to go for the Black Widow, actually, now that I think about it. And the Boomerang comes down with Wyatt's recruit points. And all these guys get a hide. So Singularity here really bailed Burt out because he was out of... Well, no, I mean, it doesn't bail him out, though, because even if Singularity pays the Arcadia and hides everybody else, she's still there. She's still exposed. Maybe you hide everybody except for Sue, and you put Singularity in the back row. Okay, is that going to clear Vulture? Yep, that clears Vulture. Okay, Burt did see the superior line of sending Ganymede into Natasha. I think that was a power-up that came down for Smallwood there. So Burt is having a real conundrum here, deciding whether he's going to hide Wyatt Wingfoot. Because if he does hide Wyatt Wingfoot with Singularity, he loses everything. All the cards in hand, all the resources. Now, there's a pretty strong possibility he's going to lose all of that stuff anyway, given how strong Smallwood's board still is. Oh, he's opting to hide him. So the whole board is getting tucked into the pocket dimension, hidden under Singularity. Burt has one card in hand going into this turn. Grandmaster makes an appearance, although it's not super relevant right now. So I think the play that Smallwood wants to get to here is clip the Sing, let everybody vomit out. Sue is probably going to go in front to try to defend people, and he's going to want to be able to attack with the Outriders, getting the Grandmaster buff into Invisible Woman. Clear her out of the way, and then have Frohickey, Langley, and these back row weenies around to kind of clean up the rest of what Burt has going on. And this is bad news bears. Burt's in tough spot here. I'm trying to think, out of the last time his card was revealed, I think there's potentially one card that he could have had that we didn't see. But out of what we saw, it didn't seem like there was a lot there. So Singularity goes down, predictably. Now, when Singularity's pocket dimension collapses, the player gets to choose where their characters go. So this is essentially like a formation step that Burt didn't... Well, I shouldn't say didn't. This is an extra formation step that Burt gets here, where he got to build the way he wanted to for his attack last turn, and was then able to build in a defensive fashion here on Smallwood's turn. Based on Burt's count, he said he's going for his last yellow here with this Kane activation. So he now has 2 cards in hand. What is he going to need here to get out of this? Because it looks like Smallwood is now positioned to just wipe all these pieces off, and then Burt's going to have to start all over. He's going to have to try to rebuild the lock. He's discarded the one Swain. He's lost a Singularity. He's lost an Iron Man. So the initial attack was with Jen, and now it's just a waterfall of attackers. walking through Bert's whole board. So 2 of the dogs have to get committed to Wyatt. So that only left 2, but with the Grandmaster trigger, those 2 are still sufficiently big enough to hit Invisible Woman. Which I think puts her at 3 wounds now. That's crazy. What a giant number of turns in a row to just not take wounds against the most gratuitous wound creating deck in the history of this game. It's unbelievable. So that seems like a pretty powerful turn for Robert there. Holy cow. So this looks rough for Burt. We know he's got a yellow in hand, so he can buy at least one more turn before the wounds really start to come in. Smallwood only has 3 cards in hand, but with the potential options that are available in the photographic universe, there isn't really anything you want to run into. Like, you really have to think about Thought You'd Be Glad to See Me. You'd have to be Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Alright, let's see what he's got. So Kid Omega forces Smallwood to reveal his hand. It's Killmonger, Grandmaster, and Heimdall. I think here you have to say Killmonger. Yeah. So Smallwood cannot recruit cards named Killmonger while Kid Omega lives. Although, how long is Kid Omega gonna live? Okay, so we got 2 Outriders with a wound. 3 are naked, and 1 still has the Grandmaster counters. Ganymede flies over into Hawkeye. Both end up dead. So this holds off the Killmonger for at least 1 turn, which could be a really big deal. I mean, every turn gets Burt a little bit closer to potentially drawing his way back into that last Baxter building we saw in his deck, or some other way to just draw the game out. And if Dark Phoenix comes down, the fabric of this game changes completely. There's essentially no flight in the photographic universe outside of, I guess, that one Vulture, but that Vulture ain't getting past Dark Phoenix. If Dark Phoenix wipes keywords, the Outriders are pretty bad. Pretty bad. So 3 dogs going into Sue, all of them getting Grandmaster triggers. That's Invisible Woman's 4th wound. So we're on the ragged edge here. So the reason that... Whoa! Whoa! Holy cow. So the keyword call remove swarm. Now normally swarm can't be removed, but the way Dark Phoenix works is it removes the concept of keywords from the game entirely. So even a normally unturn offable keyword like swarm can be turned off by deconstruct. Holy cow. There was a deep throat play from Smallwood. That's why Burt revealed his hand and then didn't have to discard those two Baxter buildings. Holy smokes. Oh my god, are we going to see the Outriders go down here? Okay, so +1 counters on all of Smallwood stuff, plus Yondu has flight, which means... Oh, no, that doesn't work because keywords got wiped. Dude, I was going along with it too. That's how easy it is. Man, I'm like my breath is getting kind of ragged. Like I'm so excited to see how this game is going to end. Like Burt, I think he's going to pull it off. I think the Dark Phoenix play might have been the necessary flip. Like, if Burt can play anything that can wipe that Yondu, that means Dark Phoenix is coming over the top into that dog, and that's all that matters. We know he's got another Baxter building, so... So Kane doesn't do anything when it enters play. Thing is totally relevant. Nice big body that all these non-flyers that Smallwood has are going to have trouble getting over. So the most broken illustrated card into the most broken photographic card for another wound. And this might be the end of this game. Langley has 7 defense. And Thing is going to hit him. He's like, I'll take that trade. He's put me through so much. All right, so Sue hides. I think this might be it. What? Okay, what are Smallwood's outs here? Goose. He could use Goose to steal the Dark Phoenix and then hide that Goose in the back row to force Burt to have to try to fight his way through some stuff. The thing is, Invisible Woman has flight and is probably big enough to just deal with that Outrider. And Earth's Mightiest Heroes wouldn't bail you out. Last one is terrible in an Outriders deck, so I mean that could just be it. A Thanos play isn't going to be good enough here. Ego might be good. Okay, Jen is going to be activated. And he's going to play Dark Phoenix. So Burt, or Smallwood used Wish to get another of his Wish cards, which was Dark Phoenix. Now, his Dark Phoenix doesn't do anything because Deconstruct has already taken keywords out of the game. Jen's power is a superpower, so it's still around. So Dark Phoenix into Dark Phoenix. Now, this is what I hate the most. This is what I hate the most about Dark Phoenix interactions. You end up with these board states where you have 2 Dark Phoenixes who can't stun each other. It's over! Oh my goodness. Thank you to both of my players. Congratulations to Burt Richardson for taking down the GOAT to secure his seat at the finals of the first ever versus 2PCG Invitational tournament in the Multiverse format.